Open the ancient epic poems written thousands of years ago. You will not find a single mention of blue. Homer describes the sea as wine dark. He calls sheep violet. He calls honey green. But the sky is never blue. In 1858, a scholar named William Gladstone noticed this strange omission. He counted every color word in the Odyssey. Black is mentioned over 200 times. White appears over 100 times. Red appears less than 10 times. Yellow and green appear less than 10 times. Blue appears 0 times. Not once. Gladstone thought Homer was simply colorblind. But a philologist named Lazarus Geiger searched other ancient texts. He studied ancient Icelandic sagas. He read ancient Persian stories. He searched ancient Chinese folk tales. He read the original Hebrew Bible. None of them had a word for blue. The sky was called white, black, or bronze. The ocean was called dark or murky. The color blue was entirely invisible in human history. Geiger noticed a pattern that existed across every language on Earth. Color words always appeared in the exact same evolutionary order. First came words for black and white. Light and dark were necessary for basic survival. Next, every single culture invented a word for red. Red was the color of blood and life-threatening danger. After red, languages developed words for yellow and green. Green signaled edible plants and fresh water. Yellow signaled ripening fruits and scorching sun. But blue was always last. Every ancient culture on Earth ignored blue for thousands of years. Why would humanity ignore a color that literally covers the sky? The answer lies in how rare blue is in nature. You can find red berries, yellow flowers, and green leaves anywhere. But try finding a natural blue animal or rock in the wild. Aside from the sky and sea, blue almost does not exist. Birds that look blue do not actually contain blue pigment. Their feathers use microscopic light structures to reflect blue wavelengths. Blue flowers make up less than 10% of plant species. Because blue was absent from daily tools, humans never needed a name for it. The ancient Egyptians were the sole exception to this rule. They discovered a rare blue stone called lapis lazuli. They ground it down to make synthetic blue dye. Only when Egyptians physically manufactured blue paint did they create a word for it. Without a synthetic process, other cultures lived in a blueless world. Did ancient humans simply lack the word, or were they truly blind to the sky? To answer this, researchers turned to modern neuroscience. For decades, scientists assumed that eyes work like simple digital cameras. Light hits the retina, signals travel to the brain, and image forms. But vision is not a passive recording. Vision is an active interpretation constructed by your brain. Your brain uses language as a filing cabinet to categorize light. If your language lacks a folder for a color, your brain blurs it. In 2006, researcher Jules Davidoff tested this idea on the Himba people of Namibia. The Himba language has many specific words for shades of green, but they have no word for blue. Blue is grouped under the same word used for dark greens. Davidoff showed Himba participants a digital screen with 12 colored squares. 11 squares were green, and 1 square was bright blue. To a modern Western viewer, the blue square jumps out instantly, but the Himba subjects struggled to find the blue square. It took them significant time to spot the difference. To their eyes, the blue square looked like just another shade of green. Next, Davidoff showed them a different wheel of 12 squares. 11 squares were identical green, and 1 was slightly different green. To a Western eye, all 12 squares looked completely identical. But the Himba subjects spotted the slightly different green instantly. Their language gave them precise visual categories for green that Westerners lack. What if your brain physically cannot perceive what your language cannot name? Brain imaging scans show that color categorization happens in the visual cortex. When a child learns a new color word, neural pathways physically shift. The brain sharpens the boundary between wavelengths. Before you learn the word blue, your brain processes skylight as faint white. Early humans were not blind, but their brains saw no reason to isolate blue. The sky was simply an empty expanse of light, not a distinct hue. When Homer looked at the Mediterranean Sea, his brain processed dark water. He compared it to dark red wine because both were dark, rich liquids. He had no separate cognitive bucket for the shade of the water. Language gave us the power to carve the rainbow into distinct pieces. Without language, the spectrum of light is one continuous, muddy blur. This phenomenon is known as linguistic relativity. Your native vocabulary actively shapes how your senses experience physical reality. Russian speakers have separate words for light blue and dark blue. Studies show Russian speakers distinguish shades of blue faster than English speakers. Their language forces their brain to maintain a sharper visual boundary. English speakers treat light blue and dark blue as the same basic color. We are blinder to those differences than Russian speakers are. How many fundamental realities surround you right now that your mind misses? We assume that our eyes show us the objective world as it truly exists. We trust our sight more than any other sense. But your eyes are merely sensors feeding raw data into an interpreter. That interpreter is constructed out of words invented by dead ancestors. If an ancient culture never named a frequency of light, it was invisible. If a modern culture lacks a word for an emotion, do you feel it? Entire dimensions of human experience might be hidden right in front of us. Animals see ultraviolet light and infrared signals that humans completely miss. A mantis shrimp has 16 color receptors, while humans have only 3. To a mantis shrimp, our world looks dull, colorless, and flat. We live inside a narrow neurological corridor created by our biology, and within that narrow corridor, language builds the walls of our perception. Think about the sky above you right now. You see a vibrant, brilliant blue canopy stretching across the horizon. You take that blue for granted as an absolute truth of the universe. But 5,000 years ago, no human on Earth agreed with you. A caveman standing on a hill looked up at the exact same atmosphere. He saw light, heat, and clouds, but he never saw blue. He lived his entire life beneath a sky that had no color name. The blue sky was born not when the atmosphere changed, but when we spoke. Every word you learn is a new lens added to your eyes. Every word expands the physical universe you are capable of experiencing. Without words, the world is an overwhelming storm of sensory noise. Language cuts through that noise and builds a structure you can survive in. But that structure is also a prison. It locks you into seeing only what your vocabulary allows you to see. Somewhere out in the world right now, there are subtle signals you miss. Smells you cannot categorize. Tastes you cannot describe. Feelings you cannot articulate. They exist all around you in every single second of your day. They pass right through your consciousness without leaving a trace. Just like the color blue passed through humanity for hundreds of thousands of years. We like to think that human beings discovered the universe. We built telescopes to peer into the edge of space. We built microscopes to stare into the machinery of atoms. We mapped every continent, ocean, and mountain peak. But in reality, we only discovered the parts of the universe we named. The rest of reality remains hidden in plain sight, waiting for a word. You are trapped inside the linguistic limits of your time period. Future humans will look back at us with pity. They will wonder how we lived without seeing things obvious to them. They will laugh at our primitive descriptions of the world. They will realize that we were blind to half of existence, just as we marvel at ancient Greeks calling the sea wine dark. The universe has no inherent colors, no names, and no labels. It is merely a wild chaos of energy and vibrating wavelengths. We project our quiet little concepts onto that chaos to keep from drowning. We painted the sky blue with our vocabulary. We invented the world we think we inhabit. Look up at the sky tonight when the sun goes down. Watch the light fade into darkness. Remember that the color you see is an illusion created by your brain. It is a ghost created by language. You don't see the world as it is. You see the world as you are taught to speak it.